Within 1 week, Seoul National University Hospital had become the most important place in the entire galaxy. Alien ships of every shape and size filled the sky above. The city bringing plague victims from star systems that most humans had never heard of. The hospital parking lot looked like a science fiction movie, with crystal ships floating next to metal vessels and energy beings that traveled in pure light. Dr. Park Taman found himself standing in front of a room full of the most advanced beings in the universe, trying to explain human medicine to creatures who could naturally see through solid matter. The key to human medicine, he said, pointing to a simple chart on the wall, is that we assume everything will go wrong. We prepare for complications, side effects, and total failures. We have backup plans for our backup plans and backup plans for those. Dr. Kimbora raised one of her 4 blue hands with a confused expression. But this approach seems so chaotic and unscientific. How do you achieve consistent results with such disorder? We do not achieve consistent results, laughed Dr. Lee Hae-won. That is exactly the point. Every patient is different, every case is unique, every disease behaves differently in different people. We adapt our treatment to the individual person, not just to the disease of alien. Doctors in the room made sounds of confusion and disbelief. This concept was completely foreign to them. Their medicine was based on universal principles, treatments that worked exactly the same way for every patient of the same species. The idea that medicine could be personalized, improvised, and uncertain was revolutionary. So Min Seok was in another room, teaching a group of nebulan gas beings how to perform surgery on solid patients. You can phase right through a patient's body to repair internal damage, he explained to the swirling clouds of colored gas. But what happens if the damage is actually beneficial? What if the patient's body is trying to heal itself in a way that looks wrong but actually works better? The nebulans flickered and pulsed with confusion. In their culture, any deviation from normal biological function was immediately corrected back to perfect health. The concept of allowing controlled damage for the purpose of greater healing was completely alien to their way of thinking. Sometimes, Min Seok continued, we have to break bones in order to set them properly. We remove healthy tissue to prevent cancer from spreading to other parts of the body. We deliberately stop the heart during surgery, then restart it when we are finished. We work with the body's natural chaos instead of fighting against it. Meanwhile, Dr. Yang Soo-jin was making the biggest breakthrough of all while studying plague samples in her laboratory. The crimson rot is not just a simple disease, she announced to the assembled medical teams from across the galaxy. It is actually a highly intelligent living organism that can think and learn. It studies each treatment attempt and develops specific defenses against that exact treatment. That is why all of your perfect standardized treatments failed completely. But human medicine is perfectly unpredictable, said Dr. Bora as the truth finally became clear to her. Eggs, Dr. Yang smiled. We throw absolutely everything at diseases all at the same time. Ancient folk remedies that our grandmothers used, modern high-tech treatments that we just invented last week, experimental procedures that might not work, prayer and positive thinking, even sugar pills that work because patients believe they will work. The plague cannot possibly adapt to complete randomness because there is no logical pattern for it to study and copy. Dr. Quill, the young crystal Zephyrian, made his confused wind chime sound. But how do you know which treatments to use if there is no system? We do not know, said Timon. That is what makes it work. We try everything we can think of. We watch what happens. We learn from what works and what does not work. We change our approach based on what each individual patient needs right now, not based on what worked for someone else yesterday. The alien doctors struggled with this revolutionary concept. Their entire medical philosophy was built on the idea that there was one correct treatment for each condition that worked the same way every time. The thought that multiple different treatments could all be correct at the same time was difficult for their logical minds to accept. Lee Hae-won was teaching a group of 4 armed Velen surgeons how to deal with uncertainty. You have 4 hands, she said, so you can perform 4 different procedures at the same time. But what if you do not know which procedure is the right one? Then we do all 4 at once, said one of the Velen students tentatively. Exactly, Hae-won smiled. Sometimes we give patients 3 different antibiotics because we are not sure which bacteria is causing the infection. Sometimes we treat for 5 different conditions simultaneously because the symptoms could mean any of them. The human body is tough enough to handle multiple treatments, and one of them will probably work. The breakthrough came when they realized that human medicine's greatest weakness had always been its greatest strength. Humans had been forced to develop medicine without understanding how diseases really worked. They had no advanced scanners, no bioregenerators, no natural healing abilities, so they had learned to fight diseases with whatever tools they could find. This desperate, improvised approach had created a medical system that was antifragile. It actually got stronger and more effective. When it was challenged by new, unknown diseases, the more impossible the situation became, the better human medicine performed, because impossible situations were exactly what it had been designed to handle. Dr. Bora watched human doctors work and saw something that amazed her. They were not afraid of failure. They expected failure. They planned for failure, and when treatments failed, they simply tried something else. Immediately, without wasting time on disappointment or analysis, she saw Taman lose a patient to the plague, then immediately start treating the next patient with A completely different approach. She watched Yang try 15 different drug combinations on tissue samples until she found one that worked, she observed. Minseok performed the same surgery 3 different ways on 3 different patients because each patient needed something slightly different. The aliens had spent centuries perfecting their medicine until it was flawless. But flawless medicine could not adapt to imperfect situations. The humans had never achieved medical perfection, so they had learned to succeed without it. Dr. Kimbora stared at the floating screen in front of her with all 4 of her blue arms shaking. The numbers were bad, really bad. 2,300,000 beings dead in just 30 days. The red spots had appeared on another 50 planets overnight, and every single medical station in the Outer Rim was sending the same message: help us, we are losing this war. The Galactic Medical Council had ruled healthcare across 47 star systems for 300 years. Their white stations floated around every major planet like shining moons. Each station was staffed by the smartest beings in the galaxy. The 4-armed Velans could do surgery on 6 patients at the same time. Their blue skin could change color to show exactly what was wrong inside a patient's body. The crystal Zephyrians could look right through flesh and bone to see diseases hiding deep inside organs. Their diamond bodies could scan for problems smaller than atoms. The gas cloud Nebulans could float right through a patient and fix broken parts without even making a cut, but none of that mattered now. The Crimson Rot was making fools of them. Ulbora watched the latest reports scroll past her tired eyes. Planet Nexus 7 had lost its entire population. In 6 hours, Planet Corlix was evacuating everyone they could fit on ships. The mining colonies on the edge of space were going dark one by one. Their final messages always the same. The red spots came and then everyone died. She had been working for 72 hours straight. Her medical team was exhausted. The other council doctors were starting to panic. Some had even abandoned their posts and fled to the inner worlds where the plague had not reached yet. The Crimson Rot was unlike anything they had ever seen. It started as tiny red dots on the skin, no bigger than a fingernail. The dots looked harmless at first, almost pretty, like little red flowers blooming on flesh, but within minutes the dots began to spread. The red color moved under the skin like spilled paint flowing through water. It moved fast, too fast for their scanners to frequenze. The red reached the major organs. Everything fell apart. The spots would appear on the heart and it would stop beating in seconds. The red would touch the brain and the patient would collapse. The liver, kidneys, lungs, stomach, everything just dissolved from the inside out. Patients went from healthy to dead so quickly that most medical teams could not even get them into treatment rooms. Worst part was how smart the plague seemed to be. It was different on every world. It attacked Velans through their skin absorption systems. It got into Zephyrian crystal matrices through harmonic resonance. It invaded Nebulan gas forms by mimicking their molecular structure. The plague learned it, adapted. It evolved faster than they could study it. Dr. Quill, the young Zephyrian assistant, flickered his crystal body with worry. Council Physician Bora, what are we going to do? The plague has jumped to 15 new species this week. Our best healers are baffled. The molecular scanners show nothing until it's too late. The bioregenerators cannot fix tissue that dissolves this fast. Bora looked at her 4 hands. Each one was designed for a different type of medical work. One for surgery, one for diagnosis, one for treatment, one for healing. But all 4 felt useless. Now she had trained for 200 years to become a council physician. She had saved millions of lives across dozens of worlds. She had cured diseases that other doctors said were impossible, but this red plague made her feel like a student again. The communication system chimed with another emergency signal station. Omega-9 was reporting total system failure. All patients lost. All staff evacuating. The red spots had appeared on the station itself, somehow infecting the metal and crystal structure. The entire facility was dissolving. Bora closed her large blue eyes and tried to think. There had to be something they were missing. The plague was too perfect, too efficient. It killed too quickly to be natural. Something was directing it, guiding it, making it smarter with each attack. But what? How could a disease think? She opened her eyes and looked at the sector map floating in front of her. The plague was spreading in a pattern from the Outer Rim colonies toward the core worlds where the council maintained its headquarters. It was moving like an army, conquering territory, planet by planet, system by system. Soon it would reach the inner worlds where billions of beings lived in the great cities. The other council members were already talking about quarantine procedures. They wanted to seal off the Outer Rim and sacrifice those worlds to save the core, but Bora knew that would not work. The plague was too smart. It would find a way through any battery. Quill made a soft crystal chiming sound that meant he was confused. Council Physician, what if we contacted the primitive worlds, the ones that are not part of the council yet? Some of them have been dealing with diseases for thousands of years without our technology. Bora looked at him with surprise. The primitive worlds barely had spaceflight. Most of them still used chemical rockets and metal ships. Their medicine was crude, basic, almost barbaric by council standards. They cut into patients with sharp metal tools. They used poisons to kill diseases. They had no bioscanners, no regeneration chambers, no molecular healers. What could they possibly know that the council did not? But then she remembered something from her early training. There was an old saying among the first council members: when you have tried everything logical, try something illogical. The primitive worlds had survived for millions Of years without advanced medicine, they had faced plagues before, and somehow they had won. She looked at the map again. Her eyes found a small blue and green world in a system called Sol. The planet was listed as Earth in the database as a young species that had only just developed atomic power. They were barely past Stone Age medicine by Council standards. But the reports said they had survived dozens of plagues over their short history. Bora made a decision that would change everything. Send a distress signal to Earth, she told. Quill flickered with shock. Earth Council physician, they are so primitive they still use chemical compounds for medicine. They cut open their patients with metal blades. They do not even have basic bioscanners. Bora said quietly, the most primitive solutions are the most effective when you are desperate. You cannot afford to be proud, but what could they possibly teach us? Quill asked. Bora looked at the casualty reports still flowing across her screen. Maybe they can teach us how to fight dirty, she said. How to win when everything logical fails. How to save lives when perfect medicine is not enough. She began typing the distress signal, knowing that she was about to break 300 years of council tradition by asking primitive beings for help. But the red spots were spreading faster now, and perfect medicine was killing nobody. The time for pride was over. The signal went out into space carrying a simple message. We are the Galactic Medical Council. We are losing a war against a plague. We need your help. We need to learn your medicine. Far away on a small blue planet, doctors in white coats were about to receive the strangest call of their lives. Dr. Kim. Bora watched in complete horror as Dr. Park Taemin slowly pushed a needle full of poison into the dying alien patient's arm. The patient was a young Velen colonist from the Outer Rim. Her blue skin was covered with angry red spots that pulsed and spread like living fire. The spots had already covered half her body, and her breathing was getting weaker by the minute. Who were killing her? Dr. Bora shouted, and all four of her arms reached out to stop the human doctor. This poison will destroy her cells faster than the plague. No, Taemin said in a calm voice that made him sound like he did this every day. I am giving her chemotherapy. This poison targets cells that divide too quickly. The plague spreads by taking over the patient's cellular reproduction system. We are going to beat it at its own game. Dar. Lee Hae-won was working on another patient nearby. This one was a crystal Zephyrian whose clear diamond body was turning cloudy red from the inside out. The rot was dissolving the being's internal structure like acid eating through glass. This is fascinating, she said, while drawing samples of crystal dust that was flaking off the patient. The plague adapts to each species' biology, but it always follows the same basic pattern. It needs the host cells to reproduce, so we starve it, said Dr. Cho Min-seok as he adjusted the foretube going into the Zephyrian. We slow down all cellular activity in the affected areas, make the environment hostile to the plague, then boost the immune system to clean up what is left. The alien medical team watched with growing amazement and terror as the human doctors worked. Their methods seemed completely insane. They were cutting into patients without any healing technology. They were putting foreign chemicals directly into bloodstreams. They were deliberately stopping natural healing processes, but somehow impossibly it was working. The red spots on the Velen patient began to fade. The angry pulsing slowed down. Her breathing became stronger and more regular. The crystal Zephyrian stopped dissolving, and the cloudy red areas in his body began to clear. Impossible, whispered Dr. Bora. Your methods should kill the patients before the plague does. They might, Taemin admitted as he wiped sweat from his forehead. That is why we monitor everything constantly. Human medicine is not about perfection. It is about taking calculated risks. We have spent thousands of years learning how to balance healing and harm. Yang Sujin looked up from her microscope, where she was studying samples of the plague. The disease is definitely getting weaker, she announced. It cannot adapt to multiple attack methods at the same time when we hit it with chemotherapy, radiation, immune system boosters, and targeted antibiotics. Altogether it gets confused. Dr. Bora asked, what do you mean confused? Think of it like fighting a war, Yang explained. Your people try to win battles with one perfect weapon. We use whatever we can find: rocks, sticks, fire poison, dirty tricks. All at the same time. The enemy cannot defend against everything when they do not know what is coming next. The crystal being called Quill made his wind chime sound of confusion. But this approach has no order, no system. How do you know what will work? We do not know, said Dr. Cho Min-seok. That is the point. We try everything and see what happens. We learn from our failures and we adapt faster than our enemies can. Us. The first alien patients began to recover. Word spread through the Galactic Medical Council like wildfire. The primitive humans were not just treating the crimson rot, they were actually winning against it. Ships began arriving from across the galaxy, bringing more plague victims to the small hospital in Seoul. Bora found herself working alongside Taemin, learning techniques that seemed to go against everything she had been taught. The human doctors did not use perfect healing chambers or bio-regenerators. Instead, they used machines that seemed ancient and crude. But these simple tools were saving lives that advanced alien technology could not touch. Watch this, said Dr. Lee Hae-won as she prepared to treat a Nebulan patient. The gas being was losing cohesion as the plague attacked the molecular bonds that held its form together. Instead of trying to repair the bonds directly like alien medicine would do, she introduced a different type of gas that made the existing bonds stronger. The Nebulan began to hold its shape again. The red contamination in its gas form slowly being filtered out by its own natural processes. Your medicine fights alongside the patient instead of doing the work for them. Dr. Bora realized we have been trying to fix everything ourselves, instead of helping the body fix itself. Exactly, said Taemin. Human bodies are tough. They want to survive, they want to heal. We just give them the tools and get out of the way. Yang Sujin made a discovery that changed everything while studying the plague samples under her microscope. The crimson rot is not just a disease, she called out to the team. It is actually a living organism that can think. It learns from each treatment attempt and develops defenses. That is why your perfect treatments failed. They were too predictable. Human medicine is unpredictable, Dr. Bora said as understanding dawned in her large blue eyes. Exactly. Yang smiled. We throw everything at diseases: old folk remedies, modern technology, experimental treatments, even the placebo effect where patients get better just because they believe they will. The plague cannot adapt to complete randomness because there is no pattern for it to learn that. Breakthrough moment came when they realized that human medicine's greatest weakness was actually its greatest strength. Humans had spent thousands of years fighting diseases without really understanding them. They had developed treatments through trial and error, building medical knowledge through failure and desperation. This messy, imperfect approach had created a medical system that got stronger when it was challenged. Deborah watched as more alien patients recovered using human methods. She saw Taemin deliberately break a Zephyrian patient's crystal arm, then reset it properly so it would heal stronger. She watched Haewon inject Avelin with a weakened version of another disease to boost immunity. She saw Minseok perform surgery with simple metal tools that worked better than advanced alien instruments. For the first time in months, Dr. Bora felt hope. The humans were teaching them that medicine was not about having perfect knowledge. It was about being willing to try anything to save a life, even if you were not sure it would work. The primitive humans were saving the galaxy one patient at a time. Dr. Park Taemin rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the chaos around him. Seoul National University hospital emergency room was packed with more patients than he had ever seen in 15 years of practice. A massive car accident on the highway had brought in 43 injured people. The summer storm outside had knocked out power to half the city, and the backup generators were making strange noises that worried everyone. Half his nursing staff had called in sick with some kind of flu that was going around. His green surgical scrubs were stained with blood and coffee. His hands shook from drinking too much caffeine, and he could not remember the last time he had eaten a real meal. The digital clock on the wall said it was 3 in the morning, but it felt like 3 in the afternoon of a very long day that would never end. Taemin was trying to stitch up a deep cut on a young woman's arm when the lights started flickering again. Great, he thought, just what we need right now. The woman looked scared and he tried to smile at her, but his face was too tired to make it look real. That was when the smell hit him. It was like breathing flowers and lightning at the same time. Sweet but sharp, clean but electric. It made his nose tingle and his brain feel fuzzy for a moment. He looked around, wondering if someone had brought in a patient who had been exposed to some kind of chemical. Then he saw them walking through the automatic doors like they owned the place. The first one was tall, much taller than any human he had ever seen. Her skin was bright blue, like the color of summer sky. Her body looked human, but she had 4 arms, 2 on each side. Moving with perfect coordination, she wore something that looked like a white coat, but it seemed to be made of light that shifted and moved. She walked with confidence like a doctor who had never lost a patient. Behind her came something that made Taemin blink hard and wonder if he was finally losing his mind from exhaustion. It looked like a person made of diamond or crystal clear and sparkling, with lights moving through its body like water. The thing was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The third visitor was the strangest of all. It looked like colored smoke that had decided to walk around in the shape of a person. Red and gold gas swirled inside a form that kept changing size and density. Sometimes it looked solid, sometimes it looked like it might blow away in the wind. The blue woman with 4 arms walked straight up to Taemin's workstation. Her voice came from a small device on her chest that glowed when she talked. Greetings, primitive healer. I am Council Physician Bora. We require your assistance with a medical emergency. Taemin stared at her. His patients stared at her. The nurses stared at her. Everyone in the emergency room had stopped what they were doing to stare at the 3 impossible visitors. I am sorry, what Taemin said in a voice that sounded small and confused even to himself. Your species has been observed dealing with diseases in ways we find unusual. We need to understand your methods. Lee Haewon, the hospital's chief of infectious diseases, pushed through the crowd of stunned staff members. She was a small woman in her 50s who had seen everything in 30 years of medicine, but she looked just as shocked as everyone else. Are you saying you came from space to ask us about medicine? The blue woman nodded with all 4 of her arms. The crimson rot plague is destroying our colonies across the galaxy. Our traditional methods have failed. We have studied your medical records through your primitive data networks. You treat diseases we have never encountered, and you succeed where logic says you should failed. Diacho Minsia. The emergency room's head nurse stepped forward. He was a big man who never seemed surprised by anything, but his mouth was hanging open. What makes you think we can help with something your advanced technology cannot handle? Diabora gestured with her forearms in a way that looked frustrated and helpless. Because your medicine is not logical. You use controlled poisons to kill diseases. You deliberately infect patients with weakened viruses to prevent stronger ones. You cut open healthy tissue to reach sick tissue. You use the patient's own immune system as a weapon. These concepts are completely foreign to us. Tae-Min felt his tired brain starting to work again. Despite the impossibility of the situation, you are saying your medicine is too clean, too perfect. You have never had to fight dirty. Fight dirty. Dr. Bora repeated the phrase, and her translation device made confused beeping sounds sometimes. Taemin said with a smile that felt more real than any expression he had managed all day. The best way to save a life is to almost kill the patient. First, Bora tilted her blue head. What do you mean, almost killed him? And looked at his patient, who was still staring at the aliens with wide eyes. He finished the last stitch and covered the wound with a bandage. Take chemotherapy, he said. We inject poison into cancer patients. The poison kills the cancer, but it also almost kills the patient. We have to balance the dose perfectly. Too little and the cancer wins, too much and the patient dies. The crystal being made a sound like wind chimes. This seems extremely dangerous and imprecise. That is exactly the point, said Dr. Lee. Hey, one life is dangerous and imprecise. We do not have perfect scanners or magical healing chambers. We have to work with what we have, and what we have is messy, unpredictable human bodies that break in a million different ways. Yang Soo-jin, the hospital's pathologist, came running from the lab. She was young and excited about everything related to medicine. Did someone say alien plague? She looked at the three visitors and her eyes went wide. Oh wow, you are actually aliens. This is amazing. Can I get samples? Can I see the disease? Can I help? Bora looked at the enthusiastic young doctor with something that might have been hope. Your eagerness to study unknown diseases is also foreign to us. Most medical professionals in the galaxy would demand complete safety protocols and months of preparation before encountering new pathogens. Yang grinned. We do not have months. People are dying right now. Show me what you have got. The crystal being stepped forward and projected a hologram from its body. The image showed the crimson rot in all its horrible detail, red spots spreading across different types of alien skin, dissolving organs from the inside out, killing patients in minutes. The human doctors gathered around the hologram, studying it with intense focus. This is incredible, said Dr. Cho Min-seok. Look how it adapts to different biological systems. It is like it learns from each species. It is learning. Dr. Bora confirmed. That is why our treatments fail. The plague studies our methods and develops immunity faster than we can develop new approaches. Lee Hae-won smiled for the first time since the aliens had arrived. Then we do not give it time to learn. We hit it with everything at once. Old medicine, new medicine, experimental treatments, home remedies, everything we can think of all at the same time. Bora looked confused. This approach, it seems chaotic and unscientific. Welcome to human medicine, said Taemin. Chaotic, unscientific, and somehow it works. 6 months after the first alien ship had landed at Seoul National University Hospital, the Crimson Rot Plague was officially declared completely eradicated across all 47 star systems. The cure had not come from advanced technology or natural alien healing abilities. It had come from embracing imperfection, uncertainty, and controlled chaos in ways that the galaxy had never seen before. Park Taemin stood in the center of the Galactic Medical Council chamber, a massive crystal, a structure that orbited the bright core of the galaxy itself. The chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of different species, all waiting to hear what the human doctor had to say. He was no longer the exhausted emergency room physician who had been working too many hours. He was now the director of integrated medical sciences for the entire galaxy. The problem with your medicine, he told the assembled alien physicians, was that it was simply too good. The chamber buzzed with translated conversations as beings from across the universe tried to understand what he meant. Representatives with multiple arms, crystal bodies, gas forms, and shapes that had no names in human language all listened as Taemin continued his presentation. Eliminated disease through perfection, he explained. You created clean, sterile environments where absolutely nothing could go wrong. But evolution never stops. Disease organisms adapt, grow stronger, find new ways to survive. Your perfect medicine created perfect conditions for the development of perfect plagues. Dr. Kim Bora, now serving as the Council's official liaison to Earth, nodded her blue head with all 4 arms. Human medicine is built on the basic assumption that everything in the universe is actively trying to kill you. Their treatments are not just healing, they are warfare, using every dirty trick they can think of. We have learned to fight dirty, added Dr. Lee Hae-won, who had become the first human member of the Galactic Medical Council. We use the patient's own immune system as a weapon against disease. We introduce carefully controlled damage to prevent uncontrolled damage. We embrace the natural chaos of biological systems instead of trying to eliminate that chaos. The changes were already visible throughout the galaxy. Alien medical facilities had begun incorporating human style emergency rooms where quick decisions and improvised treatments were valued more than careful planning and perfect procedures. Medical schools now taught courses called adaptive treatment protocols and beneficial uncertainty dodge. So Min-seok had established the first interspecies medical exchange program where alien doctors came to Earth to learn human techniques while human doctors traveled to other worlds to study alien biology. The program's official motto had become perfect medicine for imperfect beings. The greatest lesson we have all learned, said Dr. Yang Sujin, who was now the director of the Galactic Disease Response Center, is that real medicine is not about having all the answers. It is about being comfortable with questions, about being willing to try things that might not work, about accepting that sometimes the best solution is the one that makes no logical sense. The formal session ended. Dr. Taman looked out at the assembled physicians. These were beings who could see through solid matter, phase through physical objects, and analyze molecular structures with just their minds. They had come to Earth expecting to find primitive, backward medicine practiced by ignorant beings. Instead, they had discovered that sometimes the most advanced solution is the one that accepts there is no perfect solution in a universe full of unknown diseases and completely alien biological systems. The most valuable medical skill was not knowledge or technology. It was the ability to improvise, adapt, and succeed despite uncertainty. Humans had not just saved the galaxy from a terrible plague, they had completely revolutionized the very concept of medicine itself, and the most amazing part was that they had done it by simply being human, flawed, uncertain, and absolutely determined to save lives. No matter what it took. Diabora approached Timon after the ceremony. On behalf of the Galactic Medical Council, I want to thank your species for teaching us that medicine is not a science. She said, it is an art. Timon smiled. It is both, he replied. Science gives us the tools, but art teaches us how to use them when the tools do not work the way they are supposed to. The galaxy now had a new kind of medicine, one that combined alien technology with human adaptability. Crystal scanners were used alongside educated guesses. Bioregenerators worked together with folk remedies. Advanced healing chambers were supplemented with prayer and positive thinking. Medical facilities across the galaxy now had signs posted in hundreds of languages that all said the same thing. Treatment may include methods that seem illogical, dangerous, or impossible. This is normal. Please trust your medical team. The Crimson Rot had been defeated not by superior technology but by superior thinking. The plague had been designed to adapt to logical, predictable treatments it had never encountered. Medicine that was deliberately illogical and unpredictable. Human doctors had taught the galaxy that the best way to fight an intelligent disease was with intelligent medicine. Medicine that could think and adapt and change faster than any plague could evolve. Medicine that was not afraid to be wrong as long as it kept trying to be right had become the medical center of the galaxy, not because humans were the smartest or the most advanced, but because they were the most stubborn. They simply refused to give up when things seemed impossible, and in a universe full of impossible diseases, that attitude had saved everyone. The final report on the Crimson Rot outbreak concluded with a statement that became famous across all inhabited worlds. When facing the impossible, do not seek the perfect solution. Seek the solution that works even if nobody understands why it works. Taman returned to Earth as a hero, but he went right back to working in the emergency room because, as he told the reporters who interviewed him, medicine is not about glory, it is about the next patient who needs help.